Okay, so
I'm just, I don't know if it's Marco or Raymond or someone that taught me about the multiple desktops thing. So because I have so many windows open and I want to share my screen, I'm just going to try and move something over to my other screen so I can just share that. In a minute. Maybe Marco, while I'm messing around, do you think you could share your screen just with the MR open and just give us a bit of background and remind us where we're at?
Yeah, I also have to remind myself, but yes. So let's share my screen. Okay, and I think you can see my screen now.
Yep.
Okay, so basically 5 months. Wow. 5 months ago, I opened this MR to basically add a new mutation to be able to set the, was it the email?
Yeah, so we've introduced this new concept called namespace commit emails. Or we're sort of halfway through introducing it. Some of the tables are there, but we're lacking a bit of the GraphQL functionality. Some of the backends there, but we're lacking a few bits and pieces, and then we need to start building the front end. The idea is that if you contribute to multiple projects, so maybe your company's on GitLab.com, but maybe you contribute to a couple of open source projects on GitLab, you might want your company contributions to come from your company email. You might want your open source ones to come from your private email. You might even have, I don't know, some other kind of business contract, side hustle, whatever you want to call it, email. So it's to be able to kind of configure a default, if that's the right term. So when you're using the web IDE, or when you're merging through the UI, or using the single file editor, all of those things will check what your namespace commit email is that's configured. And this MR specifically was to allow us to build the front end so you can actually configure these things. So we've got the back end tables to store it, but we need a GraphQL endpoint to be able to send some data to and say, right, okay, for me or for this user, for this namespace, use this email address. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Awesome. So where did you get to?
The last one who worked on this was actually you.
Oh. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Terry.
I was like, I hate when I look something and I'm like, who touched this last? And it's always like, oh, it was me.
Has anyone got freaked out by the additional spacing on this page recently, by the way?
Oh no, I like it.
I don't ever notice space differences when people call things out as being misaligned. Like, I don't know. I think I just kind of like I have no idea what you're talking about.
Sometimes it's just weird when your brain's like, something's changed. What's changed?
Oh.
The OCD kicks in.
Yeah.
This is why I'm not a UX person, because I'm like, looks fine, still functions. I guess I took a quick look at this. It looks like there was some work on the model to add a new method that grabs the email.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm almost ready to.
I'm almost certain that the implementation was there. We were still only missing some specs.
Cool. So it's an opportunity for us to maybe just review the MR almost and kind of just see if there's just some nice finishing steps that we can.
Yeah.
I see a note also about the policy maybe needing an update from both of you. And this is stuff I don't get to work with on a daily basis, so that's kind of fun.
Awesome. I like the sound of that. I'm just trying the rebase. So shall I share my screen now? Conflicts. Yay.
Okay. Okay, now I remember why I left that comment. Well, it was 4 months ago. I don't remember what I did yesterday, so it's tough. Okay. So just to give a little bit of context about this comment, basically we changed the read namespace. Did we change the policy? Policies, user policy. Oh boy. Why?
So the namespace service is, I guess, getting a new policy called admin. I guess it's like administrate user email address. Is that what that means?
Policies, admin user email address, and this is enabled when.
So it's either yourself, so you can admin your email addresses, or if it's an admin.
Yeah. What is the little tilde subject ghost mean? Does that mean it's not a ghost user?
Exactly. That's
okay. So if it's not a ghost user and it's you or an admin, then you can change your email address.
Yeah, but we're not checking that.
I saw it somewhere, maybe in the service. Under under service users.
Oh yeah, we're checking read namespace, but where are we?
Line 17 in that file that you had open.
Yes, and that's true. But where are we? Oh, read namespace was already there. That's a permission that already existed.
Yes.
Oh, and I think that I have to remind myself, where is this?
Let's hope that search gives you what you want.
Okay, so this makes sense because read namespace is coming from the user namespace and from the group project namespace shared policy. So
you should be able to use it on both types of namespaces, which is what you want, right? Because
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think so.
And we are providing this one from the user policy. Oh God, I don't remember what we did and why we did it. So the user doesn't exist or you don't have. So only if the current user can admin the user email address of the target user. Okay.
Yes, we almost don't care about the namespace until we've checked that the user's actually got permission for them to do the email change in the first place.
Yes. And we also check if the the target user can read the namespace. So basically you can't set the email for a user to a namespace that user can't access.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then why did I left that comment?
Let me see let me read it through again. Should
We
edit?
basically want to allow this mutation only when the read namespace permission is granted. So that's granted when you have access to the namespace. Okay. Okay, because when you're using the mutation, if you can't yourself read the namespace that you want to manage, then you can't use the mutation.
Yep, yep.
Should we edit project
What was it?
namespace?
Let me just reread. I was just rebasing.
Yeah.
Should we edit this to add this permission to? So that's project namespace policy. And have you still got you've got your search results up still? Let me just, it was project namespace. Right. So project namespace.
I wonder if this got added after my comment.
Yeah, you can actually do blame through this UI now, can't you?
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe not on here. Yeah, look in the left-hand
You can,
margin.
like, if
where
you
the line-
hover by the numbers, I think it'll give you a blame link, one
There
of
you
those
go.
icons. Mhm.
Oh. Yeah, 2 months ago. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Awesome.
Okay. So we can
So-
scrap my comment.
Yeah, maybe copy a link to this and just pop it in there and say it looks like since we since we did this has been added.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Da, 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 da.
Otherwise, there weren't any other outstanding thingy bobs were there, or so this might just be like a MR review. Should we go through from the top and kind of review what we've got?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Do you want to do it, or do I go from here?
I'm happy for you to start. You got your screen up already, and yeah, all good.
Okay. So, okay, this is the new mutation, and we have two arguments, the namespace ID and the email ID that we want to set for the user. And the user is coming from...
So at the moment, it looks
Only
like
the current user can manage
Yeah.
itself.
I think we sort of suggested that we would add the ability in a future iteration to be able to manage other users, but there's a minimum viable or whatever you want to call it. Let's just do current user for now.
Exactly. And this mutation is returning the new link basically between the namespace and the email.
Yeah.
So we check that the current user is actually set. Otherwise, we can't basically do anything. Then, oh, and here we try to find the namespace from the namespace ID. And this is an authorized find, so it's applying this policy.
Yeah, perfect.
Make sure that the user can actually read the namespace. And we do not check if the user can read the email, though.
Oh, yeah, I wonder.
That's one thing that I'm sure of, is that we can't use unauthorized find for that as well, because we can't have more than one authorized.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you have a look in? Well, how far?
Can we change that record not found exception to check if the user can do it?
So my thinking is, so we're not checking, or are we? We're not checking. What was it? Yeah, I was going to say we're checking something else in here, aren't we? Right, we're checking admin user email address, but at the moment, because you can only hit the mutation as the current user, I guess we don't need to check this, do we?
No, at the moment, no, because current user and target user is the same, and we have this. So user is self.
So, but in the service, I noticed when we grab the email address, we're grabbing it. We're doing email is target user.emails.find by. So
okay,
it will only work if it's an email address that's attached to
the
user.
Because if the email is nil, on this create namespace comment email, and the create one will fail if the email doesn't exist. So if you can't find that email, well, basically you can only add emails that you can manage because they're the email associated to your user.
Yeah, so it must be an email that the target user
Has access to.
associated with their profile. Okay.
Yeah, for now, yes. Okay, so that's good. And so we actually don't get the email, we only get the email ID.
Yeah, I think that's kind of deliberate to save us loading it twice, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Though arguably, I suppose we could load it here and then pass the object into the service, but
but then we wouldn't be able to check to use the target user emails find by.
Oh yeah, because that's there's COP to prevent you from doing that here, is there?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we call the service and then return the payload. Nothing big in here, and the find object so that we can find the namespace from the namespace ID. So authorized find basically uses find object.
Cool.
Okay, mutation type only exposes the new mutation, nothing big in here. This one is used from the service because we tried to find. Okay, we tried to find, if the basically if the user has already set a custom email for that specific namespace, and this one is getting that, basically looking at the table and finding if there's already a record for that namespace.
Cool.
So that's cool. Here we are enabling the right to admin the user email address. That's good. And here's the service. So, okay, we
One thing I noticed when searching through the emails, I think you don't make sure that the email is also confirmed, so that the user actually confirmed the email.
Good
Oh.
point.
And that was.
I'm just trying to. I wonder if there's like a standard for that. If you know what I mean, if that's something that we have to do everywhere, or if there's some kind of abstraction level layer or something that we can use to avoid.
Is there a scope that's like give me confirmed emails? I don't know.
Good question. We'll have a quick look at that.
One thing I
The
also
email model has a confirmed scope,
Beautiful.
so
thank
maybe we
you.
can use that.
Cool. So this is immediately meaning we're going to need to write another test, right?
Yes.
yeah. The only other thing I would note here is this service, because we're almost doing like a find and then a create or an update if the record is found. There might be like an edge case where if it's like service run multiple times, like too close together, where it might get into a funky state. I just like reviewed a database MR where they talk about using upsert, and that might be something we want to look into here.
We actually have also a third case because you can use the same service to remove the email.
Okay. But that's only, I guess, if the email ID was not provided, then it would be removal. I guess maybe that could be the first check, and then if it's the email ID, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying. Maybe like, because let me see if I can find an example for the upsert in the code. There's nothing in our docs, and there seems to be some RuboCop rule about say find or create by, like that not being good to do all the time. So
Gotcha.
let me see.
Right.
And at this point, how are you with setting up the code, Lee? Because otherwise we are going, at least I'm going to forget.
Yeah, I'm good. What I've done, I've slipped in the dot confirmed into the line 27.
Okay.
So once we finished, depending on how you're doing for time, once we kind of finished reviewing it, I'll have that change, and I just need to kind of add a spec for that, I guess.
Okay. So I guess we can move on then with this. So yeah, we get the current user. We already prepare to support an additional user param. And we get the namespace and the email ID. Okay, so we check for the right permissions. And if the namespace is nil, we can't do anything. So that's good. So we find the email from the email ID if it's provided. And this has just changed slightly.
Yeah.
Then we try to see if the user has already set an email for the specific namespace. And if it doesn't, we try to create one. Otherwise, if the email for the namespace is set and the provided email ID is nil, we remove that. So basically this removes the association. Otherwise, if that exists and you provide a different email ID, we update the email. Okay, so the remove namespace commit email just removes the record. The create namespace checks for the email. So basically, if you don't provide a valid email ID, or you can't read the email ID,
Or it's not confirmed.
or it's not confirmed. This won't do anything. Otherwise, this will create the new record and save that. Okay. And this will just update. We actually don't check if the email is different. Should we add that to save us from doing a save on the database, or will be
Kind of. Terry's probably a lot better position to answer that, but I feel like that.
What
It's
was
quite
the question?
So, well, Marco.
Yeah, if we already have a namespace email association and we try to change the email, we're not checking if the email is actually different.
Tell me that Rao's active record's clever enough to.
I don't know what it does there. I was trying to write a comment about upsert because I still think that might be something we want to do to create like to avoid a weird case where you might get like a duplicate record error or something. We could try it. I don't remember. I work in Elasticsearch most of the time. That's why I do database reviews, to try to get more practice about using database. I don't know if Active Record's smart enough to just ignore it.
My sort of thinking was, but you know, I'm not in quite a good a position to say this as you might be, Terry, that even if it isn't that clever, like the additional code to check, like I know it's only one liner, but it's, you know, is it really worth?
Yeah, this is really a one line that has to prevent one single save from a mutation that's going to be used once every.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too fussy about that.
Yeah.
So having said that, these are only helper methods to return the right response to the mutation itself. So nothing big in here. GraphQL documentation. And here are the specs. And I'm pretty sure that we have to update these. So this is the set name, commit email. So this is the mutation itself. And we check, what do we check? If the current user doesn't have the right permissions, how do we check that? Result mutation. Object context field.
So we haven't, the user isn't a member of the namespace. So if you look on line 32, when the user does have permission, we're doing a group add.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, also because that's the only thing that we're checking on the mutation side. So
yeah,
that's good. We check for the parameters to be valid, are invalid. Create email to global ID, returns validation error. Email must be provided. We are providing it. Email ID. Email ID. We are providing an email ID here.
Is it because the email isn't attached to the, is that a bit of a, that's actually testing the service, not the mutation?
Yeah,
so if you look in the service.
Oh, yeah, that's the service. Yeah, because that message comes from here.
Yeah. So it's not, that's, do you call it an integration test? I don't know what. It's not really a unit test, is it?
No, but to global ID email. Oh, basically the user doesn't have access to this email,
Yeah.
so it can't find it. It will be null. So this message will be returned.
This
But
isn't
yeah,
really-
this is really testing the service rather than the
yeah. That
mutation.
being said, we do tests like that, don't we? So
Oh yeah, true.
it's yeah. If
I mean,
the
yeah.
only the actual an actual invalid one, yeah, but it would return the same error probably, wouldn't it? Or would it? No, it wouldn't. Thinking if
No.
we did, we've got that non-existent ID, non-existent record ID helper thing, we could possibly set the namespace ID to something invalid, because that validation message should come back from the mutation.
But if you provide an invalid ID for the namespace or the email, the mutation itself will try to validate the fields, or rather the arguments. So if it's not a valid ID for an email, that will return a completely different error.
Yeah, so what you're saying again is we're kind of testing the, I don't know what you want to call it, like the gem or the library or whatever. We don't really need to test that. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and also null. Yeah, even providing null to the namespace, that will fail because it's required. And if we provide null to an email, it's actually valid in some cases.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this can probably.
I think it could be removed, but I also don't think it's doing any harm, if you know what I mean. I think it's a valid a valid test case, even though it's testing the service more than the mutation.
Yeah. There's one thing that we probably are missing here, because we are only testing for the group. We're not testing for a project as a namespace, I mean.
Yeah.
And do we also want to test for a user namespace?
Potentially.
Yeah, that's still a namespace. So yeah, I think that all of this could be a shared example and then only provide a different namespace for the 3 cases.
You could probably just do the shared example in there to at least let it be used easily.
Oh yeah, inside and declare the shared
Yeah,
example.
I think it's, if you're gonna do that, it might be easier to review and read.
Oh yeah, totally.
I left some comments. I don't know, the upsert stuff I don't use very much. So I'm not so sure about in the service. What I've written is not fully functional, but like at least kind of show the idea of if we could somehow do the removal check first and then like create a new record, maybe like validate that it's good and then use this upsert, that would at least prevent having like maybe a clash if for some reason this to serve 2 times, someone quickly is like changed it twice and then 2 things run at the same time.
Oh, because upsert is basically trying to do an insert, otherwise an update.
Yeah, it's kind of like it updates or inserts a record in a single statement. But the problem is it doesn't do any callbacks or validations. So I don't know if you like this needs that. Like if there are validations that like need to be run.
It's sort of handling one risk but introducing another risk.
Yeah, I mean, I put the validate call in there, which you can say like if it's not valid, return the error. You can handle that. And if it is valid, then you can just do the upsert. Trying to think. There is like safe finder create by, and I keep getting feedback that they don't want us to use that anymore. Let me see if I can find.
Why?
I don't remember.
I'm going on with the rest of the specs in the meantime.
Oh yeah.
So this is just checking for the right permission to get applied to the user in different cases. And I'm pretty sure, I would need to, when user is not an admin, their own to be allowed, okay. Requesting a different user is not an admin and they're requesting a different user not to be allowed, okay.
Yep.
And when admin mode is enabled, so basically when the user is an admin and the I always confuse myself about admin mode. How do you disable admin mode?
Well, it's not about disable, it's more about enabling it. So the default, do you use you use SaaS in the office or?
No, we are self-hosted.
Perfect. So if you've got it configured in the default configuration, you don't have admin mode enabled. So it means that if you're an admin, you can do anything and everything. If you enable admin mode, then you have to actually switch to like press a button to go to enter admin mode in order to be able to do these administrative type functions, if that makes sense.
Oh, so I guess I'm always in admin mode because I am an administrator.
Well, you don't have admin mode enabled. So
that's why I wonder, how do I manage the admin mode on our instance?
You would have to, you just go into the sort of admin console, well, not console, but the admin UI and just enable admin mode. And that would just mean that you have to explicitly switch to admin mode.
Oh, okay.
Want to admin. And it's a bit confusing because.
Yeah, because I am an admin, because I am the admin of our own instance, but I can do anything. So I always assumed that I was in admin mode. And
no, you haven't got admin mode enabled. Admin mode, or maybe I'm getting the terminology wrong, but I think admin mode, when you've got admin mode enabled, that basically means that in order to do admin stuff, you need to switch.
Yeah.
Like you need to press an admin button. Whereas if admin mode's disabled and you're logged in as an admin, then you can just admin.
Okay.
Oh, our GDK instances must have admin mode disabled because when I'm an admin, I can do whatever I want.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for explaining that.
I've probably given you the completely wrong explanation, but that's let me go and see.
No, it sounds valid, and it sounds that's why they have the trait, right? The enable admin mode trait. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's something different. Let's move on. So when you're an admin and admin mode is enabled, you can admin every email basically. And when that mode is disabled, you can't admin every email.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And
sounds like the easier test.
Yeah, policy tests are relatively easy. So set namespace. Okay, this is testing the service. No, this is
the request spec for the mutations. We favor these ones over the mutation specs themselves.
Yes. And so this is setting up the call to the GraphQL mutation itself. Okay, variables, namespace ID, email ID, okay. This is getting the mutation response. So the user has access by default to the namespace because we are setting this outside. So every spec will have that. When the current user is nil. Okay, so general case, we prepare this, but then we
Explicitly set current user to nil there.
Yeah, we post the mutation with the current user nil, and we do expect some GraphQL errors, and that makes sense. We're not checking what error. Do we have to? Oh, because that's not part of the JSON response. Like, it's not actually, you know that there are two different types of errors returned by
errors and data errors.
Yeah, this is a top level error.
Okay.
We still get a message though, don't we?
We do get a message, but it's different. I don't remember exactly what the difference is in the response itself, but they do have different JSON form, if I remember right. So when the user is nil, it's a top level error, and that's coming from. See, this is a data.
No, it would come from the mutation because the user.
Come on. Yeah, it's this exception.
Yeah.
While
We could check it if we really wanted to, but
check if
yeah.
for the exact error.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see some expectation examples in other specs where they say like expect GraphQL error to include a hash, including message, and then some value after whatever's in the message. But I don't know what the message would be for these two items.
Me neither.
Be easy enough to check though, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it would be definitely easy enough, but
Okay, so let me put the potential to do in. So that's requests.
Yeah, I can add a comment unless you, oh, you're okay, go ahead, that's fine.
Feel like when I come to do it, I might be like, well, that's why I was too lazy to do it because of this problem, or maybe it'll be simple. I don't know.
I hope it's simple.
okay. So when the user cannot, so we are overriding the namespace ID in this instance. And this is another error that should, and it's a different one because where was it? In here, we would get in theory, the authorized find should fail. So we would get 403, and that's a top level error. Yeah, because it's not an error in the data itself.
It wouldn't be a 403 with GraphQL.
Yeah, like it would be a 403 on a REST API, and I think that's what they return for top level errors, like 403, 404, and those kind of things should be. No, why 404 shouldn't be? Oh, top level errors and data errors are complex. I never get my head around that.
So what one were you looking at?
When the user cannot access the namespace, it returns a top level error because it's
Because the authorized find fails, basically. Yep.
exactly. I'm not
Awesome.
sure what kind of error it should be, but yeah.
No, I've put a to do against that as well. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to check for the specific error.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And then when the service returns an error, this is not a top level error, so we get both errors and the namespace commit email, so the field on the GraphQL response. And here we can check. We know what the error should be.
Yep.
And create a namespace commit email. In this case, oh, this is the successful one.
Yeah.
So yeah, we check. Well, actually, this one should be for every one of the other tests because every test should return the success.
Yeah, maybe a better test here would be expect GraphQL errors to be empty.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I'll update that.
Yeah, I'm going to add a comment in here.
Yeah, because like I say, GraphQL very, very rarely would 500, would it? Like 99% of the time it returns success, but
Yeah.
it's the payload that you have to examine to see whether it was actually successful or not. Has anyone been following the Apple event at all?
The what?
Apple event, I think it's like that.
Oh, WWDC.
Yeah.
I did see the stream. I was thinking about trying to get a Mac. How did they call it? The Mac Pro.
Right.
Only $7,000.
Well, they just released, well, they haven't released it, I don't think, actually. Sorry, they've just announced, or a couple of days ago, the VR headset that is rather insane looking at a price point of about $4,000 US. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that with the Mac Pro, GDK should run very smoothly.
I can't imagine it'd be that much better than a MacBook Pro, would it? I mean, it.
No. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm a begrudging Mac user. I have no idea. I didn't follow it. I saw a lot of people messaging about it though on the channel.
Yeah, that's to be honest, all I like. I've not been following it myself, but in the Apple Slack channel, I saw like everyone going a bit crazy. So I interested what was going on. I think the one that amused me the most was a picture of one of them with like a cracked screen on it, because everyone I know, like iPhones, just notoriously, everyone I know with an iPhone, the screen is cracked. So
oh, my iPhone screen never cracked.
Yeah.
Oh, it's true. I actually never dropped my iPhone.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the service spec then.
Yeah, this is the service pack. Like before, by default we add the user to the group.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, by the way, in this one as well, I think it would be a good opportunity to check for the 3 kinds of namespaces. Here, well, obviously. Then, so we check the execute when the current user is not provider. Well, it should, oh, yeah. We don't have to suppose that we are coming from the mutation. So if someone uses this service from not from the mutation, this is making sure that the execute when the current user is not provided, this is going to make sure that the service itself returns the error. And that's good. The current users do not have permissions to change. That's in here.
Yep.
Yeah. So if the current user being null should, okay, it would go inside here because null checking the permission for a null user will always be false.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in fact, that's the same message. Okay.
Yep.
When the target user does not have permission to access the namespace. Okay, we're checking that as well. When the namespace is not provided, we're checking that as well. Email ID. Well,
maybe we should add a bit more to the description of that one, because it's specifically when one doesn't, when a namespace commit email doesn't already exist.
Exactly.
Because if one did already exist, then we wouldn't need to. In fact, the context block below, I'm just going to move it down into that, because there's a context block that starts on line 64.
Oh.
So I'm just going to move it in there.
Yeah. Depends. Namespace, comment, email. It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Okay. Namespace comment email does not exist. And that's the other case down there. Okay. Does not exist. It creates by default. Okay. So it's making sure that the new record is created and persisted. When the target user is not the current user. Okay. So we are going to, yeah, at this point, if we are already setting everything up, should we also update the mutation to allow users to change other users' namespace comment email?
No, I think I definitely remember that there were a couple of authorization checks, and it just wasn't worth.
Okay.
Like, you know,
I will like advocate to keeping this as small as possible.
Yeah, it's already, I can't exactly tell, but 10 files at the time of that. I think it's, hundreds of lines. Yeah, 400 lines of code already. So I think, yeah.
So when the target user, when the current user is an admin and admin mode is enabled, we can, oh, sorry, Nicholas, were you, was someone talking?
I mean, maybe it's me touching the keys, making noise.
Oh, okay. So when admin mode is enabled and the user is not the current user, the user can actually create the record.
Sorry, just stop you for a second, Mark. So we've
Yeah.
got when target user is not current user.
Yeah.
This stuff doesn't need to be inside the context block that it's in, does it?
You mean this context?
Yeah.
Well, it's
not really relevant, is it?
well, the thing that it's checking, it is relevant because when the namespace commit email does not exist, there are different cases where you can create the record or not.
Right, okay. But the fact that the target user is not the current user is kind of irrelevant. It's the success that we're really testing, and the success is relevant to this use case because it's creating a new record. Yeah, okay. But then when admin mode is not enabled, for example,
yeah,
is kind of not relevant. That could be outside the context almost because
yeah, yes, but when the namespace does not exist and you don't have the permission, we should check that the service is returning this error.
Do you mean we should check it in both branches? We should check that we get the same error regardless of whether a namespace commit email exists.
Yeah, but
that's what I'm getting at. The permissions, like the successful scenario here, kind of, it does matter that a namespace commit email doesn't already exist because we're checking that it's creating a new one essentially. But the failure cases will be the same regardless of whether a namespace commit email does already exist.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
I could argue that we should check the failures the same in both scenarios.
Yeah.
Let me just see if we're actually doing that. So when namespace commit email already exists, no, we're not doing any permissions checks in the specs in that context.
Yeah. And maybe
So I'm tempted to move these permissionsy ones outside of that context block.
Yeah, because even if the namespace already exists, that permission check is going to happen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Okay. So this is basically everything that it's going to get moved out of the context. And in here, when we basically make sure that it's removing or updating we are definitely missing some the permission checks on these cases.
Yeah, so if I just move them outside the context, it's sort of,
yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
And that's the end.
Tester away is the hard bit, right?
Yeah, it's harder to write the tests than to make the changes.
I actually find them harder to review too, because you're trying to look at what's being tested, which is, I think we spend a lot of time reviewing the test, which is good.
Do you know what? That's the one reason. Can you go to the service quickly, Marco?
Yes, the service. Okay.
So I think it's because this MR is so, oh no, it's actually also because I cancelled the pipeline. But that's why I love our code coverage, test coverage
okay.
visualization. I think that I know that doesn't, it's not infallible,
No, right.
but it's a really, really, really good indication of whether we've got code coverage for all the different branches. So I find that really helpful. Awesome. We're already over time. Marco, obviously you managed to survive longer than you must be starving.
Oh no, actually we already have dinner. It's
No way, not in your country, no way.
oh yeah, we are in the north. We don't have dinner at 11 p.m. I had
Oh yeah,
dinner
we eat dinner at like 5 p.m. local time. So
Yeah,
5
generally
p.m.
I'm gonna say any of us with younger kids are probably
It all started when I became pregnant the first time. I will like ramp back my thing. I'm like, I'm hungry at 7. Nope, I'm hungry at 6, and I want to go to bed at 6:15. So I need to like be eating at an earlier time.
No way. Now we had dinner at 7 p.m.
Yeah. Oh no, my kids. Hopefully, at least one of them's going to bed at 7.
Yeah.
I can stop the recording now. if That's
Yeah,
okay.
that's